What's up, 49ers fans? Welcome back. I'm your host here, Rob Schuh. Pretty excited to be here, even though it's kind of a painful week, but I'm joined by a fantastic guest. You know him, the great, so real Suneil. Suneil, how you doing today, my man?
Fantastic, man. I feel like we should create a name for this, and somehow we need to incorporate the Baldies because,
Yes, we
I
need
think,
everything on this channel right now is a working title production.
yeah,
I've got some podcast names in the works and I really like them, but we do need a specific show idea. So I'm going to throw it out there to the listeners, to throw it into the comments, to throw it into the chat, to put it on the statements when this is sitting on YouTube. We need some ideas because
yeah,
we need to brand this thing, right?
I think so, man.
I think
Baldies and the
so.
beards, man. We got the similar type look. I think it should be branded like you said.
So something that has to do with bearded, bald, and
49er
beautiful,
fans.
right? Because we're nailing all three. I think we're on top of that. So, yeah, obviously this has been a rough week in comparison to the first two, with the 49ers coming out with those two very close victories that probably should have been a little bit more decisive. And then that led into what was the disappointment of Sunday night. And personally, you know, I took it pretty hard watching Aaron Rodgers come down the field. There's something about the smug look on that guy that I just don't like to see him celebrating on our home field. So that was tough to see. But rather than spoil anything, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today, which is the grades of how the 49ers actually came out. So obviously,
Rob, before we move on, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
I
no,
think there's
please.
something telling about what you just said. I haven't seen Aaron Rodgers with that much kind of excitement. He was jumping up in the air, excited. It's very rare to see him. You know, you'd see the fist pump, but once he got into field goal range, that fist pump that he had was like super excited on the sidelines. He was jumping up and down. You can tell that was a game he didn't expect to win.
I agree. I think that it meant a lot to him.
Yes.
It is one of those that really meant a lot to Aaron, and he shouldn't have expected to win that one, quite frankly. So getting into the grades, right? The 49ers obviously suffered that loss. It was, unfortunately, in heartbreaking fashion when you're taking the lead with 37 seconds left. I don't care whether Mahomes, Rodgers, I don't care who's on the other side of the ball. With 37 seconds left, you expect to be able to hold on to the victory in the NFL. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it. So let's jump right into the grades and let's go ahead with the all-important quarterback room. Suneil, how did you have the quarterback grade breaking out for the 49ers?
Okay, so there's a theme to my grades. And
Okay.
I kind of want to put it out there already because maybe some people are going to think it's harsh. I don't know. But in my mind, we both did the prediction show Thursday on my show where we talked about what we thought was. And both of us thought this was supposed to be a very sound win. We thought it would be like competitive, but at the end of the game, I think both of us had it as a 2-score victory. Then that was before we found out all the injuries, right? We realized it's third string left tackle. One of their corners is out. So we would even assume it's even more of a victory at that point.
Yeah, should have gotten more lopsided at that point.
Exactly. So the fact that it was a loss, for me, I can't give it any passing grades. So because I expected a dominant victory, it ended up being a close loss. To me, you can't pass somebody when you're expected to win, you're favored to win, everything is in your favor to win, and you still lose. So my quarterback grade is a D, solid D. And the reason why I'm giving a D instead of a D- or an F is because of the late game heroics as far as putting them in a position where they could still win at the end of the I wish it was at the end, but with like 30 seconds left in the game. But overall, I think that the quarterback play left this defense on an island where they are constantly fighting uphill battles. And I think at the end of the game, you just saw a defense that had been gutting it out to keep their offense in the game for as long as they did. Put it in because of the quarterback play, putting them in constant situations where Their back is against the wall, and the defense showed up, right? All the turnovers that Jimmy Garoppolo did, the 2 turnovers only led to 3 points. And those were really short fields. So the defense did their job to like hold set at least. And I think it led to, at the end of the game, them just not having enough in the tank. And I think you could directly put that on the quarterback play. So for me, it's a D. The offense is getting started way too late. And it seems like Jimmy Garoppolo can only play well when it's a 2-minute offense. And that's usually when the defenses are playing more relaxed because it's 2 minutes. They're more in prevent type defenses. And that's the only time they're scoring. And this, unfortunately, isn't just this game. This was also what we saw in the Eagles game as well, where he didn't really put together solid drives till the end of the second half. So for me, it's a D because I think as a quarterback, and we just saw it on the opposite side with what Green Bay had in Aaron Rodgers, what a great quarterback can do, even with a depleted team, still be able to go out and get a victory. Mediocre quarterback, a middle of the pack type of quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo is, who I think we could still win with, but the margin of error is just so slim. And, we saw it.
Yeah, I think that those are good observations. I specifically like your call out at the beginning that you are doing these grades based off of your expectation going into it versus then what you saw on the field. So that D coming in as a pretty harsh grade for Jimmy. But when you look at expecting to win this game, that makes a little bit more sense. Little nod to Bay Area baller. I'll tell you what, Bay Area, I wish we could have you on as a call-in show right now because I could use some positive energy today. I know that I am feeling down. I know other 49ers fans are as well. Suneil and I are going to bring it regardless. But, every now and then you need a little pick-me-up. And Bay Area baller comes with the energy. That is for sure. Just wanted to say what up. So to me, the quarterback was a solid C-, right? I have to give him credit for the comeback because Jimmy did get the 49ers back into this game. At the end of the game with 37 seconds, the 49ers were up and should have walked away with the victory. No question that Jimmy battled throughout the game, made a couple of very nice throws and some big-time third down throws, definitely. But that does not overshadow the slow start with the badly missed easy throws. Those were unforgivable in my book. I mean, they were gimmies and they were way off, allowing Green Bay then to jump all over the 49ers because you just had the similar circumstance to last week where you had a quarter of basically zero production from the offense. And I had said in my prediction that you cannot allow the Packers and Aaron Rodgers to have that head start because they would make us pay for it. And sure enough, they did. The backwards pass was embarrassing for sure.
Just take the sack. Just take the sack.
Yeah, take the sack for sure. And not entirely Jimmy's fault. Right? I mean, clearly the interior of the offensive line played poorly and on that specific snap got blown the hell up. So I'm not faulting Jimmy entirely because the pressure was right there in his face. But I do fault Jimmy for what is a continued pattern of behavior for him, which is the gears in his head just seize up at the wrong moment, right? He's processing what's going on, and then he's got that interior lineman in his face, and boom, the gears seize up. He might have a lack of oil up there in the gears, and it leaves him panicked, and you get a panic move, and that's what the throw was. Should have just taken the sack. It would have been a bad play, but it wouldn't have cost us in the way that did. And to your point of expectations, this was a highly suspect defense, and failure to make them pay on some of those easy plays at the beginning gave them the momentum and then proved to be too much to overcome in the end. So I agree that Jimmy did not live up to expectations, but I'm not putting it all on him by any stretch of the imagination. I think there were some other guilty parties here within the 49ers organization. And that leads us into the next group of players, and that's the running backs. I'll jump in first here.
Sure.
I am with you on not passing the running backs, that's for sure. I gave them a D+, and the only plus in my book was Juice. Juice came out of the gate and looked sharp and made me question why we don't have Juice involved in the game plan a little bit more often because
Right.
it's exciting to have him under center, to have him coming in, carrying the ball, getting the ball out of the backfield. It's definitely a weapon that we're not making use of, but we're certainly paying for it as if we are. And Sermon didn't look great, but it was hard to get a clear picture of what he offered because we just didn't stay with it. The sense that I got right out of the gate was Shanahan sending a message that he didn't trust his running back room. He didn't want to put it into their hands. And I thought that gave the advantage to the Packers because it sent a clear message that I don't trust my running game. I'm going to be doing some creative play calling, but I'm not going to do the traditional things that you're going to have to defend and have struggled to defend as the Packers up until that point.
Yeah. I wish we could give an incomplete, but if we're going with the grade, I also would go with the D. The reason for that is, even though the running backs had very limited, actual attempts, right? They only were like 40% of the offensive snaps compared to, 60% was passing. And in those snaps, there was also Debo mixed in, Kittle mixed in. So it was really just like Juszczyk, I think, had 5 carries. Sermon had maybe like 10, and then Cannon had 1 or 2. So we're talking about a very small sample size. And unfortunately, the running game wasn't a factor at all. So I can't pass them if you're not a factor, right? So D, I think, is a grade, and it's unfortunate because I don't think it's only on the running backs. I mean, we're going to talk about that group importantly, but it's very much an issue with that offensive line. There's no push. I love Trey Sermon. I think he could be a very good running back for us, but you have to be Barry Sanders to be able to, have the type of quickness and elusiveness when the line is moving backwards as you're running forward into trying to find a hole. And Trey Sermon isn't Barry Sanders. I don't think he's that good. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a very tough situation, but the running backs did nothing to make the situation any easier. And I think part of that is Kyle Shanahan, getting away from it. Part of that is that they were down 17-0 very quickly. And I think the biggest part of that is just this offensive line is not getting the push that we expected them to get with these reinforcements.
It was nuts that they were consistent. The Packers were consistently in the backfield, 2 yards. I mean, it was getting blown off the ball at some points.
Consistently, like you said.
I have to agree with Swift here that they lost as a team from coach all the way down to QB. But we did, as a team, as a 49ers organization, need that reality check. Got to learn from this. No question about that. All right.
Well, but we have to also say, I don't think this game was anything different from what we had seen in the other 2 games. The only difference is that we got a victory because the quarterbacks that we were playing in the other 2 games weren't good enough to take advantage of all of the opportunities that the 49ers had given. And Aaron Rodgers did. And I think that's the biggest difference. So, as the coach, like for us not being football people, right? That's the biggest thing. You guys don't know football the way that Shanahan and all these guys know. If this needed to be done for them to realize what their team was, then they don't know football because we had seen this. It's not like this is a shock, right? We've constantly, if you go back to all of our shows, are like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? And it still didn't happen. And, we finally played a team that could take advantage of it.
They absolutely took advantage of it. Aaron Rodgers took advantage of it. Matt LaFleur took advantage of it. No question.
Devonte Adams. Definitely.
Devonte Adams. Oh, man. I feel bad now for blowing up his Palo Alto High School status. I mean, I probably shouldn't have given him any kudos.
You probably got
when we were talking about it.
Extra boost from that.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, let's get into the wide receivers, and let's put the wide receivers and the tight ends together. So we're doing pass catchers here.
Yeah.
I had them as a pretty solid performance here. I actually have them as a B+. I give a lot of credit for some really tough catches by the wide receivers on slants over the middle. They are lucky that they didn't get killed on a lot of those. The Packers knew exactly what type of throws were coming at them, and they were there to defend. But I thought that the wide receivers and Kittle both did a good job of making contested catches. running angry. Kittle definitely had some very impressive runs after the catch. And then run blocking may not have been great on the edge, but it was serviceable. I thought that the vast majority of the pressure that was coming in to stop the run game was coming from the interior of the line. And these pass catchers did enough with 0 run game to put 28 on Green Bay, to put up 28 points on the Green Bay Packers with a totally ineffective run game. So to me, they deserve some credit there.
Yeah. This is the only passing grade I'd give. And I gave it a C+. And one, Ayuk got there. So I gave you props on Twitter when I started seeing the offense opening up, because you definitely made that great call last week, and I thought it wasn't going to happen.
I saw that, and I wondered what it was. I was like, I made no correct calls on this game. Nothing. And I was too depressed at that point. By the time I saw the tweet, I was like, I can't. I'm done. I'm done. I can't do it.
Yeah, but
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, so it was about you talking about this offense was going to get the other weapons are going to be used, and I was like, no, it's just going to be Debo, Dink, and Doug. And it wasn't that necessarily. The reason why they're not higher for me, Rob, is because there was some moments where I think that they needed to step up a little bit. They did step up a lot, but these guys I think our receiving core talent-wise on the offense is probably the highest level that we have, especially with the running back core being injured. Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk are the best talent that we have on the offense, right?
That's a fair statement, yeah.
So look, once again, we could compare it to what we saw from the other team. Did any of these players do what Devonte Adams did? Who else did the Green Bay Packers have other than one quarterback and one receiver? And you said we were good enough to put up 28 points. Well, that twosome was good enough, unfortunately, to put up 30 points, right? So when that's what I want to see. Now, obviously, are any of these players Devonte Adams? Clearly not. Do we have Aaron Rodgers back there? Definitely not. But
no, we do not.
But for me to put them a little bit higher, these receivers and George Kittle needed to make that play, right? And I think this weekend, and we'll talk about it, I think when we go into different, there was so many, I think, examples of what a superstar is this weekend when you watch football. When you talk about what Aaron Donald did, when you talk about what Myles Garrett did, when you talk about like needing a play and the superstar step, what you saw what Devonte Adams did, right? In the game we were watching. And I don't think those moments were there for the 49ers. Obviously, I think that last drive it was, but it's a little too late, right? We can't just one time you do it and then we forget about the rest of the game where it wasn't done. We shouldn't have even been in that position is why. And I think that this receiving core needed to put a little bit more on their shoulders when they saw the running game wasn't there and not put us in where our back is against the wall. We need this type of play. So that's why it's a C+. They still pass, but I could expect more from them.
That's a fair critique because no one on this offense really stepped it up to the level that was needed in order to eke out a victory against the Packers. All right, so Raymond has set up our next set of grades very nicely. Remind me which team had the injuries on the O-line. It certainly didn't feel like the 49ers were the dominant O-line throughout this game. Trent Williams, obviously, looked spectacular for the most part, although had his own error.
Yeah.
But how did you feel about the offensive line? I have a feeling that this could be an ugly grade.
D-, maybe even an F. And I was ranting and raving about how big of a difference Alex Mack was going to make for this offensive line. And he has been looking terrible. This is
he got blown out.
Yeah, this is 2 weeks in a row where this offensive line has been beaten up. And I think we talked about it, Rob, last week where we said whomever wins the trenches is going to win this game. And we expected that the trenches would be won by the 49ers, and it wasn't. It was won by the opposite team. And they obviously won the game because of it. And I think that this offensive line is hurting the run game, is hurting Jimmy Garoppolo's ability to be successful because he needs a perfect pocket to be able to, really succeed, at least for most of the game. Every now and then he can make a nice throw with pressure in his face. But if it's consistent, he's not going to have, the type of games that we need for us to be able to win. So I put a lot. I think the trenches for me are the biggest culprits for why we lost. So these guys get a D-, maybe even an F, because they should be our strength, and they're not. And because of that, everything else is domino effect, not as good because these guys can't do their job.
Yeah, I definitely think that they should have been the strength in this game. All credit to Kenny Clark, who blew this game up. I mean, he played like a grown man against boys for the most part in this game. He was tossing people around on the interior, and it was ugly. He was in the backfield the vast majority of the day and made some amazing plays. It felt as though someone had physically challenged him to step it up on Sunday night, and he took that challenge and he ran with it, and it made the offensive line look pretty pathetic in my book. I go straight F on this one. I can't go any higher than that. It was ugly from the outset. Interior pressure killed the 49ers on Sunday night, and it was from the jump. It stymied the offense for the entirety of the first half up until that last drive, and allowed some critical pressures in the second half that led to key mistakes. And all of those factors combined come into the reason why the 49ers couldn't pull out a victory Sunday night. It was an excellent game by Trent Williams, but there was the big miss that allowed the blindside hit on Jimmy from Preston Smith, and that was very clearly Trent Williams sliding inside on protection and just left the man on the outside unblocked.
Right.
That's a mental error for sure. And then both Brunskill and Mack on various snaps got manhandled by Kenny Clark. So to me, it was definitely an F, not a good performance, and does leave me wondering whether we can match up against any of these teams with strong interior pass rushes.
Look, if this is what we're going to get out of Brunskill, why not just start Banks?
Banks.
At least let him get some experience. He's a bigger body. Brunskill is pretty much non-existent out there, right? I think we had a lot of hope for this offensive line after what we saw in Detroit, because they had Jimmy Garoppolo completely clean in that game. But now we're starting to realize that is a product of how inept the Detroit defensive line was, because Philly had their way with this offensive line. Green Bay doesn't even have one of their best pass rushers in Za'Darius Smith there, and they had their way with this offensive line. So I know you said how are we going to compete against people with good interior defensive lines? I take it a step further, Rob. How are we going to compete with any defensive line? Because these guys seem like anybody could push them around. Anybody with the motor, anybody with a little bit of skill, because the Green Bay defensive line isn't going to finish off as a top 10 defensive line. No. They might not even finish. They might finish off like mid-tier defensive line. And they look like the better defensive line in this game.
They did. They came out fired up. And I do have to wonder, we'll touch on this later when we talk about coaching, but Raymond brings it up here, and I definitely want to call it out. Kyle gave Green Bay the bulletin board material speaking about who's the most physical team. When I heard that, that made me worried. That seemed like the type of thing you don't need to give to the other team. Felt like a mistake and seemed to have bit them in the butt in the end.
Look, if you can lose because your coach said something in a press conference, you suck. And this offensive line sucks if they lost because the other team was more motivated. You are an NFL team looking to win the Super Bowl. You are making millions of dollars playing a child sport because your coach got the other team more motivated. That's why you are losing to an inferior, talented side.
And let's call out first home game in front of a crowd. Like, if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what does. So I would agree that if that's enough for the bulletin board material, that is concerning. I do think that we have some questions to be answered along the offensive line. One would hope that it's a matter of getting some continuity there and we continue to see it progress. But as of this moment, I'm with you on feeling pretty worried.
It's regressing. They look better in week 1 than they are in week 2 and week 3. So I don't know. And unfortunately, it's not because somebody's injured or somebody's hurt, which has been our excuses in the previous time. This is our starting offensive line. Everybody's healthy. There's nobody waiting in the rafters that's going to be coming back healthy to help this team out. So
fair point by Raymond here. Well, we can't run, and we know we struggle in pass pro. So until the run game gets going, I expect the O-line to struggle. You do know that other defenses are keying in on rushing the passer because of the lack of depth in the running back room for the 49ers at the moment. Until we get Mitchell back, I have to think that other teams are not concerned with our rush game. All right, let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball and talk about the defensive line. I personally thought that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. When I went through to do grades after having watched the game live for the first time, I was down on the defensive line. I was feeling pretty upset. I was leaning towards the no passing grades myself when I thought about doing this. And then as I went back and I rewatched it, I felt that it was not as bad as it seems. I want to credit Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a hell of a game, and he got the ball out of his hands about as quick as you could hope for as a NFL quarterback. It was ridiculous. We were inches away from what would have been a sack fumble by Bosa on that second drive. That could have been a big momentum shift, but Rodgers felt the pressure. It came within inches of him, but he stepped forward in the pocket and delivered the strike down near the goal line, I believe, to who else but Devonte Adams. And the game plan seemed to be the problem on my end of it. I feel like we had no answer for those quick passes. He came out, he set the tone with what they were going to do, and we just couldn't adjust to that. And then I also felt that behind the starters, the backups did not play well, that we weren't getting considerable pressure unless it was Bosa and the first stringers in there. Couldn't take advantage of a third string left tackle. I mean, that is worrisome for sure, concerning, and something that we should have been able to handle. But again, we did a reasonable job holding Aaron Jones and the Packers run game in check. It's probably because they were all over us in the short pass game, so they didn't care about getting the run game really rolling. But all those factors combined, I had to give the defensive line a C+.
D-.
Okay.
I don't know what you saw in the running game that said we held Aaron Jones back. The only reason why Aaron Jones was held back is because they stopped handing him off the ball. But every time he got the ball, he was gaining 3 to 5 yards, 4 to 6 yards. They were in second down and short every single time they handed off the ball. So this defensive line once again couldn't stop the run. We can put it on Aaron Rodgers for getting the ball out quick, but the New Orleans Saints, with the same type of trigger that Aaron Rodgers has, gave Aaron Rodgers fits. And this team didn't give him any fits. And we have a better defensive line, supposedly on paper, than the New Orleans Saints. And this is my point with the defensive line. Look, maybe a lot of my grading is based off of what I expected from this. We weren't talking about this defensive line being a top 10 defensive line. We were talking about this defensive line being a top 5 defensive line.
Facts.
And they are playing like a bottom 15 defensive line at this point because they can't stop the run and they're not getting sacks. So what exactly are we doing with this defensive line? If we're not, and then once again, remember I talked about this weekend gave us examples of what we are looking for. Were you able to see the Cleveland versus Chicago game?
Yes.
So that defensive line with Myles Garrett and crew sacked a mobile quarterback in Justin Fields 9 times. Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks just himself. Now, is Justin Fields had the same trigger that Aaron Rodgers and experience and all that kind of stuff? Not at all. But can you get 1 sack against Aaron Rodgers with this defensive line?
Yeah.
Did we get 1?
Yes,
no.
We got Eric Armstead had that 1 sack.
1, okay.
Yeah.
But we got 1 sack against this defense, against this makeshift offensive line that they have because they lost an all-pro center. They lost 2 two really good left tackles, and they're just piecing together with rookies this offensive line, right? So to me, this defensive line is the most disappointing part of this team, because if they're not playing at a level, every other aspect of the defense looks pedestrian. And that is what we're seeing, because this defensive line is not getting the type of pressure. Another example, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pretty good offensive line.
Very good offensive line.
Tom Brady, pretty good quarterback.
Pretty decent.
Okay, yeah. Aaron Donald on the Rams, when they needed a play, was it that Tom Brady's throwing the ball too quick? No. Was it that this offensive line was just too good? No. He went out there and made a damn play. Nick Bosa, if a tight end can chip you and take you completely out of the game, you are not the person that we think you are. Because they are doing much more to Aaron Donald, and somehow he is still able to make plays against a better team than who you just played, sir. So no, they don't get a C. They cannot pass, because there are players and teams and defensive lines that are supposedly either at our level or not at our level that are showing that it can be done. We need to stop giving this team excuses and be like, you know what? They did okay here and they did. No, dominate. That is how you pass, is you dominate. Otherwise, you fail. This is a pass or fail for this defensive line. There's no in-betweens for me, Rob.
This is dominate or fail by Suneil. I like it.
We need that. This team isn't good enough if we're just getting a C out of this defensive line. So you fail because the object is to win. And we're not winning with the way this defensive line is playing.
You're very right about the idea of how this defense was built, that if we're getting middle of the road contributions from the defensive line, this defense is in trouble, because we are relying upon that defensive line to be dominant, to be a force in the middle. Now, I had to look it up because I didn't want to come across and not have it, but I think it was a decent effort against the run. 19 carries, 82 yards, not terrible. Not getting run all over, not great. Somewhere in the middle of the road production. Anytime you're around that 4 yards a carry, that's not terrible.
No, that's terrible. Over 4 yards a carry is bad. That means they do that 3 times. That's a first down.
That's for sure a first down. You do that 3 times in a row, but that's not getting blown out of the water. That's
because they stopped running.
That's where I'll give you the point, is that they absolutely gave up on it because they were destroying us in the short passing game.
If we're getting
no question
4
about
yards, over 4 yards a carry, our running game is doing fantastic. The difference was Green Bay stopped running because they knew Aaron Rodgers was like, give me the ball. I could just throw it to Devonte Adams, and let's stop earning 4 to 5 yards. Let's start getting 15 to 20 yards. And that's the only thing, the reason why this wasn't an over 100-yard game for Aaron Jones. It had nothing to do with what our defense was doing.
I agree that if they didn't get away from him, it would absolutely have been a 100-yard game from Aaron Jones. But that may have tilted in our favor had we taken the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. You make a fair point about Nick Bosa getting chipped by the tight ends. You got to wonder what George Kittle is teaching him at this tight end university.
Right.
Maybe he shouldn't be throwing that thing. We can't have Tanyan coming in and walking all over Nick Bosa. That's unacceptable in my book. So we need to make sure that that is remedied. All right, let's get forward to the linebackers grade, and I'm anxious to see whether there's any remaining passing grades for you. But linebackers, how'd you have them, Suneil?
D-. Fred Warner, you just became one of the highest paid middle linebackers in the world. Where are you? How are you getting on a 4th down drive? How are you letting Devonte Adams just sit there right behind you, be out of position for Aaron Rodgers to throw? And look, that was a great throw by Aaron Rodgers.
Amazing throw.
But Fred Warner, you are the best covered linebacker in the game. And all we needed you to do was cover one person. Just if it was MVS, all right, cool. If it was, Randall Cobb, all right, cool. Devonte Adams, look,
Devonte.
That is the person that we know he's looking for. That is his one read. So this is what happened. Aaron Rodgers kept his eyes on Devonte Adams the whole play, waited for him to just get right behind Fred Warner, and then threw a dime right to him.
An absolute dime.
Once again, you talked about 4 yards per carry, over 4 yards per carry. For that is linebackers not coming up and making the stop quick enough. We had 1 sack. That is linebackers not getting in the backfield and, stopping plays and things like that. This linebacking core, and look, Dre Greenlaw is no longer there because he's injured. Right. And I think he's a huge loss, and he's racking up money just sitting on the bench right now because I think the 49ers are seeing the value of Dre Greenlaw and how much better he makes Fred Warner, right? So I think a lot of people thought it was the opposite. Fred Warner makes Dre Greenlaw look better. Well, look, Fred Warner isn't looking like the best middle linebacker in the game this season. And maybe that's blasphemy, and I'll probably get killed for that take. But in my eyes, he's not looking like it right now. Does he have the potential to do that? Absolutely. We've seen it. But he's not playing that way. Once again, star players make star plays. Where was Fred Warner's star plays? Where was Azeez Al-Shari's star plays? Where are they? They're not there. So we could keep saying, oh, it was Aaron Rodgers. Well, a year ago, 2 years ago, Aaron Rodgers was still the same quarterback. For some reason, we were able to stop him back then. Now, all of a sudden, we can't. I don't know.
I like the take there. What I would say is I think I've already moved past the idea that this isn't the 2019 defense. So maybe my expectations were lower going into this. I really thought that the linebackers had a pretty decent game, helping to contain the run. Again, just keeping it in front of them. I think that anytime you're holding another team to around 4 yards a carry, that you're doing all right within the run defense. So I say it's decent, good tackling, good solid tackling, but they did not make the plays that they needed to in order to get off of the field. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the pass over Warner's fingertips, again, I'm going to say much more of a spectacular play by Aaron Rodgers. The only critique that I have is Fred, with no one there in front of him, should have been a step or two deeper to begin with, and that would have put him in position to actually make the play. The penalty against Tonyan definitely took him down a bit in that one. That was a panic move. That was something that was uncharacteristic of Fred Warner. And I think you're right that without Dre Greenlaw on the field there's a little bit of a lack of confidence. And potentially when you look at the play calling by D'Amico Ryans, there may be a lack of confidence for Fred in the relationship that's getting hammered out there. It's still early on in the season. I still expect a big season from Fred Warner, but I got to tell you, there was a little discrepancy in the odds I was getting on placing an MVP bet on Fred Warner, and I didn't end up making it, and I'm pretty glad that I didn't at this point.
Well,
makes me sad to say so, but that's the reality of it. All right, on to the group.
I don't think you said your grade. What did you put as your grade? I don't know if you said
my grade, B- for the linebackers.
Wow.
B-.
Wow. So that's the highest grade you gave.
B- on defense. Yeah, I had wide receivers higher. B+ for the wide receivers.
Wow.
But I thought that the linebacking core was basically solid, not spectacular. Therefore, B-. B-, C+ is in that range for me. The secondary I thought was atrocious, but I also thought it was to be expected going into it. I thought they were going to be bad, and I thought that they were bad. Safeties carried them a little bit, again, with some solid tackling when needed to be, but no spectacular plays to balance it out. Rodgers was all over this secondary. I think going into it, at best, I was hoping for a C-level performance from this group. I was hoping that they would keep it in front of them. I was hoping that the scheme would put them in a position to effectively defend Devonte Adams. But even doing so, I was expecting Devonte Adams to have a 100-yard day, even considering good cornerback play, but we didn't get that. We had the nice tackles from the safeties, but other than that, I thought that it was pretty terrible. I did think schematically they were left hanging out to dry a bit, and we'll get into that when we touch on coaching, but I have to say this was as close to failing as I can get. I gave him a solid D-, and the only reason it wasn't an F is because I had C expectations going into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go F. And the reason why it's an F is because, look, I could understand the plays where you're just getting, where like your rookie's getting out athleticized by a guy like Devonte Adams.
Right.
But early in that game, I think it was in the first drive, MVS just blew by K'Wan Williams, who's one of our better cornerbacks. Just blew by him. It was just a straight go route. And he just, I'm like, what? Like, I can understand if this is Lenore. Okay, you're a rookie. K1? Like, if our good cornerback is getting beat up this way, that's one. The second thing was this team is running this zone read covered with these corners that don't know how to play zone. It seems like they're in the wrong positions. They let Devonte Adams just eat, and I could understand if Devonte Adams was making contested catches and he was going up and just being a beast like we've seen D Hopkins do and we've seen Devonte do as well.
Right.
But these are they just did outside shoulder, and it wasn't even like the guy that was guarding was in good position. Fortunately, a lot of times it was Lenore that was getting beat up, which we were wondering, hey, when he plays a really good receiver, what's it going to look like? Didn't look good. And then when they changed the zone, Rob, it's like they don't know how to play it. Like they're just so out of position that there's all of this, room. And I think that sometimes because Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, we're like, oh, it's because Aaron Rodgers. I hope so, because it seemed like maybe any decent quarterback would be able to make some of those throws. That because of just how much space there was.
And I think you have to look at the idea that even if you say it was Aaron Rodgers, I mean, look at the next two quarterbacks and wide receivers that we're going up against on the schedule. It's not as if this thing gets incredibly easy. And now we don't even have Goff to rely on for the Rams, right? Now we have to go up against Matthew Stafford, who's looking pretty goddamn good out there for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
And so it's going up against a series of very talented quarterbacks, very talented wide receivers, and a defensive back room that is just completely depleted at this point. I will say,
are we just gonna be okay dropping 6 interconference games because it's great quarterbacks? Because that's the reason that most 49er fans are giving right now. I've seen some of these commentators that are saying, some of these guys that are saying, oh, well, it's, Aaron Rodgers just made an amazing play and people are blaming the defense, or people are blaming this, people are blaming that. Well, what's the bad quarterback we're gonna play in our division? Name him, because I'm not seeing one. So if we're not going to be able to make those plays, then let's just drop the season. Like we'll just go over and be, we don't even have draft picks. So good thing, go Miami. You can go have like top 5 picks for the next 2 years, because clearly if we play a good quarterback, our defense is still okay. No, man, make the play.
I tell you what, if we end up giving away high draft picks for those first rounders that we traded to go up in this year's draft, that is going to be very painful.
Get out of here if that happens. Kyle needs to get out of here if that happens.
That for sure will cost someone their job at the end of the season if that's the case. All right, let's fly through these this one, because the next one's important. Special teams. How did you have special teams going on this one?
I mean, I don't think Mitch played as well as he did, the last game. I'll give him a D, but, they were pretty non-existent, I would say. So, I don't know, indifferent.
This one, and it's my highest grade out of all of them. I can see why you'd stay low on it, but I gave him an A-. I thought it was really solid play by the special teams. There was one Mitch Wishnowsky punt that landed at the 1 and bounced, but then rolled into the end zone. That should have been downed within the 20, and that was definitely a missed kick by Mitch. But other than that, he was solid. The return game was good. The amazing kick return is really the only reason I think we were in this game. If that had not occurred at the end of the first half, had Cannon not been shot out of a cannon and gotten us close, I don't know that we would have gotten any points there, and I don't know that we would have come out with any energy in the second half. So I have to attribute some good when I saw it there. But I had the missed opportunity to pin the Packers deep on that one kick, and I thought that kicking into the end zone with 37 seconds remaining was definitely an error. You've got to try and take some of that time off of the clock. I understand the strategy because the Packers actually do have a pretty electric rookie kick returner that we stayed away from pretty much the entire game, and that would have been risky to put it in his hands, but no riskier than giving time to Aaron frickin' Rodgers.
Right.
So I would say that was a letdown, so that's where I took it off as the A- there. But other than that, I thought the third phase of the game was very solid. almost inches away from a Dante Johnson block on that final field goal. The picture that shows him outstretched and that ball, I mean, we're talking 6 inches here. Dante would have been the hero.
I wish when I was going through school, you were my teacher, because you would be like, well, the answer was A, but he almost got it right because he put B. It was so close. So let's just give it to him and give him a passing grade. Almost doesn't cut it, Rob. We need to be harder on this team.
Special teams can't come in and block for Jimmy Garoppolo. As much as we would like Mitch Wishnowsky and his rugby bravado to come in and just flatten Kenny Clark, you can't do it.
You gave him an A-. Was the special teams better this game than they were last game?
I thought that they were. Yeah, I think when you look at impact plays this time around, I think that they were just slightly behind it, and I believe I gave them a solid A on the last time. So from an A down to an A minus.
Hey,
I mean, it's hard when you don't have any real missteps. When you do everything in front of you to what's asked, it's hard for me to not give a good grade in that instinct. Now, let's get on to coaching, because this is an instant where I do believe some critical errors were made, and I was not generous in my grading of coaching because I gave them all a big fat F, and I thought it was well-deserved. I thought it was completely earned. If there were a grade lower than an F, I would have considered giving it, because it felt like we were out-coached from the start of this game by Matt LaFleur, and that's pretty embarrassing in my book. So to me, it was the defensive plan came out. We seemed to dare Rodgers to beat us, and he happily obliged. It was like, hey, Aaron, come try and do what you do best against us. We'll just try and match up with you man on man and see if we can't play our game better than you play yours. And Aaron was like, cool, I got you. And he came out, lit us up. Shanahan's offensive plan acknowledged his complete lack of confidence in the run game. He came out. I believe that you have to at least fake a belief in the run game. You have to at least make the Packers believe that we will at some point run a power run off one of the guards up the middle with one of our running backs and not have to go to a gadget play every single time that we want to run the ball. I thought that he basically took Sermon out of the game without allowing Sermon a chance to prove that he belonged in the game. To me, F's across the board, very little adjustment on the defensive side of the ball. I thought D'Amico Ryans definitely looked like he got eaten alive by Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, and I hope that it's a learning experience.
Yeah. I give D'Amico an F. I give Shanahan a D. So overall, I'm giving him a D minus. And the only reason why Shanahan gets a higher score than D'Amico is because this team was still fighting all the way to the end. And they at least put themselves in a position to win the game. So you got to give them some for not just totally letting go of the rope, right? Because this easily could have been one of those type of games where they just imploded. And the fact that they were still fighting at the end of the game, the fact that even down 17-0, 17-7 at halftime, they still had they were able to drive and get a touchdown at the beginning. That's coaching, right? You create, put the right game plan together, all that kind of stuff. So that's there. However, D'Amico is one of the issues that one of the major critiques about D'Amico or worries about D'Amico was not that he wasn't going to be able to get these guys motivated, not that week after week he's not going to make good adjustments, because he has. When he saw the tape, what happened against Detroit, he switched that up against the Eagles, and they played much better. The issue was in-game adjustments.
In-game, yeah.
And he has not shown the ability thus far to understand what the other offense is doing very well and make those in-game adjustments, right? And that is something that I think even early on when we saw Robert Saleh, that was one of his issues. And I think this is just the growing pains of a rookie defensive coordinator, first time, defensive coordinator against an MVP caliber quarterback and offensive minded coach that, and obviously a superstar wide receiver. And simple math would tell you there's one player that can't beat us on this team, one receiver. Devonte Adams. Because can you name the other 2 receivers on the team, right? Because like if you could only name one receiver off of their team, maybe he shouldn't be the one that's beating you. And it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers was like spreading the ball around. It was just one play. If this was Madden, he was just going X, 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 right? And the fact that DeMeco couldn't figure out a way to take Devonte Adams out of the game. I mean, Jimmy Ward tried, but unfortunately Devonte Adams couldn't. Still got up like the zombie and still came back into the game and made
unbelievable to get up after that shot, dude. That was a hell of a hit.
Which I'm glad, because you don't want to see, an injury like that happen to such a great player.
Never.
So, but to me, that is an issue. There's 2 big things that I think he completely failed at. That was the one. The second thing is the fact that the Green Bay Packers were able to take Bosa out of this game just by putting a tight end chip on him. To me, those are unforgivable. You get an F grade for that. And look, just because you're a rookie, you're in the big leagues right now. There's no pass. This is a Super Bowl caliber team that people have Super Bowl aspirations for this team, at least before in the offseason. Now, I don't think anybody's looking at the 49ers thinking they're going to win a Super Bowl, but we need to be better. We thought this is going to be a top 5 defense. They're not. And a lot of that has to do with there's not because of lack of talent. It's because of lack of scheme, lack of adjustment, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it was a rough game overall. And to me, I'm a big fan of the buck stops here. And therefore, to me, the coaching is the harshest grade that I gave, because I genuinely thought that we were outcoached from the outset on both sides of the ball. I do agree with you that it seemed the lack of in-game adjustments by DeMeco Ryans was the most concerning of it. But I also was very upset by Kyle's plan going into it. The idea that he sort of conceded the run game from the outset and didn't even bother to find out what the other running backs could do in the room. Thought that Sermon was ineffective and therefore basically went away from it, and then didn't get any of the other running backs involved. Kerryon Johnson, there's some potential there. He's a previous second-round talent. I realize he's coming back from an injury in the preseason, but clearly is back to form in order to get signed. And obviously the speed of Cannon could have been beneficial for the offense to get something going, and it just felt like we conceded on that. All right, so we've given out some harsh grades, and that's taken us through the vast majority of our show here. But let's close this one looking out to the future, and let's ask the question around whether we expect the 49ers to come out to another slow start. We're going up against the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to be playing against Russell Wilson. He likes to put the ball up against the 49ers. He's got 2 elite wide receivers, not just one in Devonte Adams, but 2 coming at us now. We're not getting any healthier there. So let's look at this one. The Seattle defense has absolutely struggled to get off the field so far this season. That's a fact. So will the 49ers be able to capitalize on that fact and actually get out of the gate quickly in this one? Or is the offense going to struggle at the start of the game again?
And we're not just playing, I don't know what would be better, a Seattle team that's 3-0 or this 1-2 Seattle team that's desperate and looking to get back on track. I don't know which one is a better matchup for what we're going into. You would think that a hobbled Seattle team actually helps maybe the 49ers as they're kind of limping into, they're probably the record looks better than their play right now, right? And maybe Seattle is the record looks worse than their play right now. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. To answer the question, is this going to be a slow start? I think that the Seattle team is going to be able to score, right? They just have too many weapons. They have all of the things that are our Achilles heel: mobile quarterback and really talented big receivers, right? And big time receivers. Devonte Adams ate us up. Jalen Hurts ate us up. So they have a combination of both of that, which is going to be like, they're going to score. It's not like, unless this defensive line, plays out of this line, but if they put, whomever their tight end is over there, Will Dissly or whatever it is for Seattle. If he chips Bosa's out of the game, right? So
I don't know. Did Dissly go to tight end university? Because if not, then maybe we have a chance.
I don't know if he watched any kind of tape. That's what every offensive tight end is going to do from this point on. But look, Seattle's going to score. To think that all of a sudden the 49ers are going to figure it out and be able to stop a mobile quarterback and good receivers in 1 week, I think is naive. The question is this offense going to be able to score? Or are they going to wait till 2 minutes left in the game, 2-minute drill to do that? I think this game is changed if they go up to a hurry up offense. I think they just need to do it from the first drive. Hurry up offense. Give Jimmy a smaller playbook where he doesn't have to think a lot and just run the plays. Because anytime it's a hurry up offense, he seems to do better. And I think that's the change that needs to be made. And if that happens and they go and he gets the confidence of scoring on his first drive, or even at least, let it be a field goal on the first drive instead of these 3 and outs that we're seeing, or like the one. I think he needs to see multiple first downs. And I think that changes the game. So if they change the dynamic of this offense, I think that we'll be in good shape. If it's the same type of scenario, I think we're going to struggle. So I really hope that Shanahan saw that on tape like I'm seeing it. It seems like anytime it's a hurry-up offense, the offense looks to be doing better. So let's do that as right out the gate, first drive, just to get everybody some confidence and see the ball, see those chains moving versus just 3 and out and the defense gets back on.
Yeah, I wonder if it gets Jimmy out of his head, because I honestly, sometimes it looks like he's thinking too much when he's out there. It looks like he is lost in whatever the decision-making process he's going through when he's going through his reads, and at times just looks scattered. And potentially within the 2-minute offense, it simplifies things. It gets him just focused on, boom, execute, next play. I think that we are not going to get out to a slow start on this one. I think the 49ers are coming up against the get-right team that they need from an offensive standpoint. The Seattle defense just hasn't been able to put it together. They have significant struggles against both the run and the pass. They're only giving up 4.5 yards per carry, which is not great, but not atrocious in the league. It's bad, but not horrible. But they're averaging 150 yards allowed on the ground per game. So that is definitely a leaking defense that cannot get off of the field. I think that the 49ers are able to take advantage of this Seattle defense. I think that you will see them methodically work down the field so that they can get back to the complementary football that makes this team so good. I think that this defense will have a hard time stopping the 49ers. I expect Mitchell to be back. If not, at least we have another week under the belt for these guys that just joined the team. I expect Shanahan not to allow the run game to be an afterthought as it was against the Packers. I do think that the 49ers come close to that 150-yard mark, and I hope that we see a little more excitement from the offense than we saw the last time around. So my prediction is that we get out of this one quickly and we do not see a quarter of scoreless offense from the 49ers yet again.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely, Suneil. Right. Fire away, my friend.
How many plays do we see of Trey Lance against Seattle?
Ooh, that's a great question. This one is perplexing to me, Suneil, and I'm just going to be honest about that. That I really feel like Kyle is attempting to just grasp at the control over this decision, and that he's fearful if he puts Trey in the wrong instance when Jimmy is struggling or the offense is sputtering, and you see the spark that we all hope we're going to see when you put Trey in there, that the decision is then taken out of Kyle's hands. And in my mind, I think he very much wants to control when, if, and where Trey is used. So I think that it'll be another low usage game, unfortunately, and I would put the over under at 5 snaps, and I'm taking the under.
So we just saw what happened to Justin Fields. Didn't look good. Mac Jones, up and down. Zach Wilson, not so good. Trevor Lawrence, surprisingly, not so good. I think we actually might have done this the right way with keeping Trey Lance on the bench, because we've seen these other talented quarterbacks really struggle. And look, Peyton Manning struggled, Troy Aikman struggled, Drew Brees struggled. So there's some Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks that had really bad rookie seasons. So that's not necessarily what the issue is as far as whether or not these quarterbacks are going to be good in the long term. But if we see the type of talented team that we have right now, I agree that we should have started Jimmy. And because of how these other quarterbacks have looked, here's the issue. I think we know what the ceiling is with Jimmy.
Yes.
And we've seen it, and I don't think it's Super Bowl, right? I don't think we're winning the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo as our quarterback.
Not unless you have a top 5 defense.
Which we don't at this
point. It would appear we do not.
Okay, so this is a very important 2 games, right? Because if we go 0 for 2, now all of a sudden our 2-1 season's 2-3. What is the point of keeping Jimmy in there? I think that we need to start working Trey Lance into the offense because he needs to get the reins. Because I don't know if this is not a Super Bowl year, Rob, he needs the experience and he needs to have the team on his back. He needs to get all of these important reps, in-game reps, so that next season we can actually be a competitive team.
Yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch probably view that a little bit looser in that if they're still a playoff caliber team, I think that they will keep Jimmy in because I do think if we miss the playoffs, somebody's job is on the line. I think John Lynch could be gone, and that would be crazy for him to have gone from where he was, the extension, the gold jacket, to then consider himself on the hot seat. But when you look at 4 first-round draft picks potentially not contributing this year, you could see the seat get hot very quickly. So I pump the brakes a little in saying as long as there's a shot at the playoffs, the 49ers will pursue it very fervently and for good reason because no one wants their friends to lose their jobs. But as soon as that window closes, last season we spent all this foolish money chasing a season that had already been flushed down the toilet, and that became dollars that we couldn't spend this offseason, and it hurt us. Potentially was the difference between adding a very important backup cornerback to have some depth there. We couldn't make that move. So you can't do that again. You can't chase foolishly, but I think as long as playoffs are in the picture, that they continue to make every move possible. All right.
Put Zapped up there. He's actually being positive. We need to end on some positivity.
What we got positivity?
He said it might still be a Super Bowl year. The Niners almost stole the game away from the Packers.
Let's see that. Ooh. I mean, we did almost steal that game away. Yeah. Let's not forget that
we didn't get blown away. We didn't get blown out.
It goes up in the loss column as an L. That's a fact. But it was not a blowout. The team did not lose heart. The team was in it until the end. Jimmy was in it until the end. Jimmy did enough to win that game. That's a fact. Did enough to win that game. 37 seconds left, up by 2, up by 1. That's enough. Defense couldn't come through, so that was a little bit disappointing. All right, let's hit these last couple rapid fire. Are you ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right, so going into our last topics here, real quick, who's your player to watch on Sunday? We got a tough matchup coming in against a division opponent. Who's one of the critical players that you want to see a big game from in order to ensure a 49ers victory?
Nick Bosa.
Nick Bosa. You mean he can't get chipped by a tight end and be out of the game?
Nick Bosa needs to be our Aaron Donald. He needs to be our Myles Garrett. He needs to be that dominant player that people fear on the other side of the ball that could just come in and change the dynamic of a game. And he's the only person on that defensive line that could do it. I don't think D Ford is going to be playing enough games or enough snaps to be able to be that dominant guy. It's got to be Nick Bosa. Nobody else has his talent. He needs to dominate. Otherwise, I think Russ cooks and we don't have a chance.
I love that call out. And I think it's fair to expect the most dominant defensive player on the defense to come out and be the most dominant player on the team. We got a quick one here that I'm going to put in from AJB. Kyle wants, it's about the opposite of how I laid this out, and I think it's an interesting premise. Kyle wants to be forced to play Trey, so it's not his fault if Trey doesn't do well. I think he'll do well. I would agree that I think once he does get in there, he will do well. But just an interesting perspective, the other side of the coin from Kyle not wanting to lose control over the situation to the idea of actually waiting until he's forced into it such that it doesn't make him look bad if things do go poorly. My player to watch Sunday is George Kittle. I saw a fantastic game from Kittle on Sunday. Some grown man catches, some breaking tackles. It was good, and it was heartbreaking that it was in a loss. However, it made me realize that since the retirement of Joe Staley, this offense has lacked a leader. It has lacked someone who grabs the rein of this freaking thing and says, all right, boys, let's go. It's just not Jimmy's style. It's just not Trent Williams' style. So even though Trent Williams may and probably is the best left tackle in the league, I don't think that he's that raw leader that you want just out there leading the charge. I think he sets the tone physically. I think that he is a fantastic anchor on that left side, but I don't know that he's the unquestioned emotional leader. So I want to see Kittle continue to apply himself in the way that we saw him against Green Bay. I thought that Joe Staley provided the perfect combination of seriousness, skill, heart, and levity, and kept the unit together, and we've been missing that since he left. So George Kittle, my challenge to you is to take on a little bit more of Joe Staley in your personality and make sure that you are the unquestioned leader of this offense, because somebody needs to be. Somebody needs to step up. Somebody needs to lead this unit. It needs an identity. It needs a leader. It needs someone at the head of the charge. So I am looking out for George Kittle on Sunday. All right, taking us into our next one. This is a quick one as well, but the level of concern for 49ers fans. The idea around this one is, let's look at it DEFCON style. So DEFCON 5 as a nation, we use DEFCON 5 to say we're good. We're at peace with everyone in the world. We're at DEFCON 5, no worries. When you get to DEFCON 1, there are nuclear bombs in the air traveling between us and whoever we're going to be in mutually assured self-destruction with. So where are the 49ers after the loss to the Packers? I think you have to keep in mind that it was a close loss, that down to the last second, we had a chance to win this one. But to me, there are trends that were evident in the first two games that were wins that showed their ugly heads again in this one. So I'll go here first and say, for me, we're already at DEFCON 3 in this thing. I thought we were at DEFCON 4 after two unconvincing wins, that even though those were wins, they left us with concerns, and I thought they were not unfounded concerns. This game was supposed to be a matchup that heavily favored the 49ers. To me, if we lose the next one against Seattle, it's bumping up to DEFCON 2. We're almost at mutually assured self-destruction at that point. So where do you put us here just after week 3, Suneil?
Yeah, so the way that I'm looking at this, Rob, is what are the expectations of this team? If the expectations of this team are just win-loss record, then maybe we're at DEFCON 4 because we're still a 2-1 team, still in good position to be able to do that.
That's a fair point.
If this is we're making the playoffs and we're trying to compete for a championship, we're at DEFCON 2. And the reason why I went a step higher than you is because the problems that we have, there are no people it's not due to injuries like it was in the past, where there's people coming off the bench that are about to be healthy that could change the way that this game goes. It's not that. For the team that we have is the team that we have. And so where's the help coming from? No, it's people that we already have that are playing poorly have to all of a sudden play better. And we could go by the record. We could go, hey, it was only a close loss. Well, look, our first 2 wins were also close wins. So if our whole season is going to be based off of coin flips, wins or losses, we are not a team that's competing. This is a team that's just barely scratching by. And if that's the team that we're looking for, then okay, we're at DEFCON 4. But I don't think that's the team we're looking for. We expected a dominant team that was going to come out, be one of the top 4 teams in the NFC, and they're not. And they're not looking like they're going to be able to fix these very quickly either. So it's DEFCON 2. Nick Bosa is getting run out of a game by a tight end. We have no running game. Jimmy G is throwing passes backwards. Like, what are we looking at here? You know, D'Amico Ryans can't make in-game adjustments. Kyle Shanahan is like afraid to play a person that he traded his whole draft class to be able to get. Like, does this sound like we're okay right now? Like,
everybody panic.
Yeah, so I say DEFCON 2, man, just because I don't expect this team to just be a middle of the pack. Okay, hey, we end up 10-7, we end up 9, and you know what? We expected this to be a 12-5 team, a 13-4 team. Do we look like that? No, we don't. So it's DEFCON 2.
It sounds like if you had hair on the top of your head, it would be on fire at this moment.
Dude, my beard is falling out right now, brother.
Oh, man. It's ugly, and it's ugly early in the season. Hopefully we get some pick-me-ups here at our final topic. But I'm getting a sense that maybe we won't from you. So let's look ahead to our Week 4 prediction. All right. Thankfully, thank the sweet baby Jesus, Week 3 is over, and it's on to Seattle, and thankfully it's a home game. Although if it were up in Seattle, I'd be headed to that game on Sunday. It'll be at Levi's. I'm grateful for that because we need the home field. So it's a tough division game in one of the best divisions in football. Who you got, and what are the quick keys to the game as you give your score prediction?
Yeah, so the keys to this game, once again, like every keys to these 49ers game is who's going to win in the trenches.
Right.
Offensive line, defensive line. If the trenches, whoever wins the trenches win this game. With that being said, Rob, I have Seattle winning. Ooh. And I think that Seattle is more desperate. Seattle is more seasoned at the right positions. And I don't think we have a secondary that is going to be able to compete with what Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf with a quarterback of the caliber of Russell Wilson is going to be able to do. I think Russ is looking at exactly what Aaron Rodgers did with just one receiver. And he's like, I got two of them things.
I got two.
He's going to get the ball out quick. These guys that he has are yak boys, just like our yak boys. And if our defensive backs can't keep on them, can't tackle, this could be a brutal game. I don't expect it to be a blowout either way. I think it's going to be a close victory for Seattle. I expect maybe like a 24-17 type, one score type victory. But I'm going with the Seahawks, and it pains me to say that because
it should pain you to say that, Suneil.
It does, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're 2-2 after this week.
I can't fault you for the logic there. I mean, all of the things you mentioned as keys to the game are definitely possibilities coming out of it. I'm a bit more optimistic here. I look at Seattle defense, and I see this defense being very suspect. I expect long, sustained drives by the 49ers against a lesser defense. Looking through the first 3 games, Seattle's given up 84 first downs. That's a whopping 28 first downs per game. That's insane. The best offense in the league, the number 1 offense, is Dallas, and they're averaging 27 per game to this point. So Seattle's defense is worse in allowing first downs than the best offense in the league at getting first downs in a game. Highly suspect pass defense. They gave up 50 first downs passing and 8 on penalties. So I suspect that we can get all over this. It's the perfect defense to have a get-right game. I look for big production from the big 3. Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk. I think all 3 have good to great games against Seattle. A little more balanced attack with the run game. I expect that, fingers crossed, we get Mitchell back, because I do think that Kyle Shanahan obviously has very little faith in the backs that are in the room aside from Mitchell. But I think that defense is suspect enough that you will see the 49ers control the clock, control the time of possession, and therefore give their defense a chance to rest up and then get after Russell Wilson. I do think it will be a close game. And I will say the same caveat that if this game is close at the end, I think Seattle takes it. However, I don't predict that to be the case. I think that the 49ers handle this one, and I think they take it down 35-27. Vast majority of the 49ers production coming on offense, just holding on to the ball, long, sustained drives.
I feel deja vu, like this is Thursday from last week, and that was the defense that was going to get this offense going off.
It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be. That's a fact.
Now this is the defense that's going to get the offense going.
Yeah, well, I can't abandon my own theories about the potential for this offense.
Consistency.
It is the potential is there. It's merely a question of whether they are going to realize it or not. Let's not kid ourselves. The starting five on this offensive line is nowhere near as bad as they looked on Sunday night. If they continue to perform at that level, we can have a different conversation. But as of right now, I think we have to say it's more of an outlier than it is a precedent of what we're going to see for the rest of the season. So I expect Russ to work his magic. I expect us to struggle greatly with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But I think that the offense, the 49ers offense, does the vast majority of the damage on Sunday. And I think 49ers fans will go from, oh, woe is us, end of the world, to the sky's the limit as soon as we beat the Seahawks, baby.
Imagine this, because this isn't like some fiction. This could be the starting defensive backs for the 49ers against Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. A hobbled Mosley and Dante Johnson.
With Dre Kirkpatrick coming off the bench.
And Lenore.
That's brutal.
You know, yeah, I mean, and that is the reality.
AJB calling it out. We searching DBs on Craigslist. Yep.
Yeah, man, we are. And maybe we need to bring some of these college guys up because, I don't know, get somebody from Alabama or something like that.
Yeah, it could be painful. You never know. I believe in the 49ers at this point until I am proven wrong. Suneil is already on negative train, and I can't say I blame him because what the 49ers put out for the most part, even though it was a close loss, was a bit uncharacteristic. It wasn't what we expected to see, and until they can right the ship, I don't blame you for being a little bit skeptical. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the show. Suneil and I are both going to be on Jesse Naylor's channel over on Last Second Sports at 6:30, just a few minutes to, comb our hair a little bit and get ready for that show. If you don't follow Suneil over at So Real Sports, go do it. The link is down in the description to this video. Suneil, as always, man, a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And we get to talk about it next week. See where we were right, see where we were wrong, because this is a weekly thing. That's why we need you guys to come up with a name for the show. And please incorporate bald, beard, and beautiful if possible, because I love those adjectives that Rob came up with.
Bearded, bald, beautiful bros. I don't know what it is. That's not it. That is clearly not it.
Working title.
We're counting on you listeners to put it in the comments, put it in the chat, go leave the comment on YouTube. And we will be back on Suneil's channel next week. We'll let you know the day and the time. We'll see you in just a few minutes over on Last Second Sports. Until then, have a good one, 49ers fans.